On the morning of August 13, 1961, the residents of Berlin awoke to a shocking sight. Their city had been divided by a new barrier, hastily constructed overnight. This was the beginning of the Berlin Wall, a structure that would come to symbolize the ideological divide of the Cold War for nearly 3 decades. The decision to build the Berlin Wall was driven by the East German government's desire to stem the flow of its citizens fleeing to the West. Between 1949 and 1961, over 3 million East Germans had escaped communist rule by crossing the border into West Berlin. This mass exodus posed a major economic and political problem for the German Democratic Republic, GDR, as it lost a significant portion of its skilled workforce. The construction of the wall was a collaborative effort between the East German and Soviet governments. According to declassified documents, East German leader Walter Ulbricht had been pressing the Soviets for years to allow him to close the border, and in July 1961, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev finally gave him the green light. The two leaders worked together to develop the detailed plans and logistics for the barrier's construction. The initial stages of the wall were hastily built, with East German soldiers and police erecting barbed wire and concrete blocks to seal off the border overnight on August 12, 1961. This rapid construction was part of a coordinated operation codenamed Operation Rose. By the time most Berliners woke up the next morning, the border had been sealed off, cutting off access between East and West Berlin. Over time, the wall was reinforced and expanded into a more substantial barrier. The final and most sophisticated version, known as Grenzmauer 75 inches or Border Wall 75, was constructed between 1975 and 1989. This version featured 45,000 separate sections of reinforced concrete, each standing 3.6 meters, 12 feet high, and 1.2 meters, 3.9 feet wide. The top of the wall was lined with a smooth pipe to make it more difficult to scale, and it was further fortified with mesh fencing, signal fencing, anti-vehicle trenches, barbed wire, and guard dogs. The construction of the Berlin Wall was a massive undertaking, requiring the coordination of thousands of East German and Soviet military personnel. General Anatoly Grigorievich Mereshko, the deputy director of the operational department of the group of Soviet forces in Germany, was one of the key figures responsible for the final coordinated plan to close the border. The barrier was built entirely on East German territory, with the wall slightly inside the East Berlin border to ensure it did not encroach on West Berlin. This allowed the East German government to maintain the legal fiction that the wall was not a border, but rather a protective measure against fascist elements in the West. The construction of the Berlin Wall was a stark reminder of the ideological divide between the capitalist West and the communist East. It physically separated families, friends, and loved ones, and became a symbol of the oppression and control exerted by the Soviet-backed East German regime. Attempts to escape over or through the wall were often met with deadly force, as East German soldiers were under orders to shoot on sight anyone trying to defect. The Berlin Wall stood as an imposing barrier for nearly 3 decades, until its dramatic collapse in 1989 amid the broader unraveling of communist rule in Eastern Europe. Its construction and eventual demolition marked a pivotal chapter in the history of the Cold War, and the wall's legacy continues to resonate as a powerful symbol of the struggle for freedom and the human cost of political division.